Ugg with 2 Salt Travel here, and I'd like to show you how to catch stillwater trout on a fly rod using the dangling technique. Dangling is an excellent way to target trout holding in very deep water. During the summer months when the water temperature at the surface gets really hot, trout living in lakes and reservoirs tend to go deep in search of cooler water. That's difficult for us as fly fishermen because there's a limit to how deep we can fish. Dangling allows us to get to those deep holding fish. It involves hanging a fly directly below a boat using heavy sinking lines. Typically you're going to want to dangle in water that's 20 to 30 feet deep so that the fish aren't spooked by the boat being anchored just over their heads. Dangling also works great when it's too windy to cast a bobber. And since there's no bobber on the line, the takes are all by feel, which is a lot of fun. In fact, the strikes can be aggressive to say the least. If you're the type of fisherman who likes to sit while you fish, just be careful you don't get so comfortable that the fish yanks the rod right out of your hand when it takes the fly. Jigging leeches and soft hackles is an excellent way to dangle, but you can also do just as good suspending chromatids right off the bottom. So let's take a look at how this rig is put together. Okay, so you're going to want to put a sinking line onto your fly reel, and you can choose to put a full sinking line on there or a sink tip. But whichever one you do, make sure it's one with a fast sink rate, like 7 to 8 inches per second. And on there, you're going to want to put some hang markers. And you can put hang markers on there with a little bit of duct tape, or in this case, I spray painted mine on with some paint that's designed for plastic. And I put those hang markers every 6 feet. So I started here at the end of the sink tip and worked my way back up 6 feet and painted a marker, and then onward up the fly line until the end of the sink tip. This is a 30-foot sink tip, so it's got 4 hang markers 6 feet apart. This is the Orvis depth charge. It's a 350 grain, and it'll sink about 7 inches per second. Off of that, I want to put a very short leader on here. You want to use a short leader because you want this rig to get down into the strike zone very quickly. You don't want to just be hanging out for a long time while you're waiting for it to get down there. So use a short leader, and I actually only put 1 fly on this rig so that I keep the leader as short as possible. The leader material is Berkeley braid. I'm using a 10-pound, and I've connected it to the fly line using a loop-to-loop connection, and then on the other end of it I've got a little swivel, which I used the Berkeley braid knot to tie onto that swivel. And I've got an egg sinker. I like egg sinkers because they're pretty heavy. They'll go down pretty quickly. And then off of that swivel, I've put about 2 feet of 4X fluorocarbon to the fly. So you end up with a leader that's under 4 feet long. Next, let's go out to the lake and see how this rig works in action. And here we are on Stagecoach Reservoir. It's a beautiful morning in fall, in early fall, and I'm out here anchored up in 27 feet of water, and there's fish pinging on the sonar just underneath the boat. They're feeding in depths just 2 to 3 feet off the bottom. There's a chromatid hatch going on right now, and so I chose a little bomber chromatid. This one's a chartreuse size 14 bomber chromatid, and let's see if we can't catch some of these fish, okay? Using the dangling technique. So I do a cast here. I just do a little flip-flop cast, and I have set the depth that I'm going to suspend the flies off the bottom using my hemostats to find the bottom, and then I've marked it with my hang markers that I've painted onto the sink tip line here, and I'm using the guides on the rod to mark where I want my depth to be set. So it takes a minute for those flies to settle into the strike zone, but they're starting to get down there now, so I kind of want to be ready. I've got my index finger of my rod hand on the line, and then I like to have my left hand here, my stripping hand, on the line as well, in case I need to do a hook set by raising up very quickly with the rod tip. And so there's fish down there, so I just want to be ready. Once those flies have settled into that strike zone, I might just jig it just a little bit, almost like the same way that the flies will jig underneath a bobber when there's a little bit of wave action, just kind of rising up a little bit and letting it drop in there. So drop it kind of slowly. Sometimes that will induce the strike. Fishing very deep like this using the dangling technique is it's kind of a waiting game. You're just waiting for schools of fish to swim underneath the boat, and then hopefully they'll grab your fly and take it in their mouth and swim with it. And then those are usually the really good hook sets. Here I've got a little nibble going on right now. It's not taking it very aggressively, so I don't want to set the hook. When these fish do grab it, it's really an incredible strike. They'll just hammer this thing, and the rod tip will go slamming down, and you won't mistake it for anything. But sometimes they just kind of come by and they just kind of bite at it, but they don't really grab it and run. So here I'm getting some nibbles, but I haven't gotten that fish to just really hammer that crumpet. So I'm waiting to set the hook until he takes it in his mouth and he really runs with it. Again, I'm just kind of jigging the rod tip just a little bit, kind of trying to, there he is right there, get my rod tip up high, and the fish is jumping. I just didn't want him to get around the anchor there too much, so it's really fun. You can do this from the seated position. So if you're an angler who likes to sit and fish, this is a really fantastic way for you to fish. This technique works the best when the water temperatures at the surface are very high and fish go to that deeper water to seek out the cooler temperatures, or midday when they are just trying to get some relief from that sun, which is straight up overhead. You can fish this technique in very deep water from, I like to fish it from about 20 to 30 feet. But you can also fish it as shallow as, see if I can get this hook out of the fish, and water as shallow as about 12 feet. And so here's a nice stagecoach rainbow, and that's kind of the name of the game. Thanks. Okay, so I just love these hook sets. So let's look at it again. Boom, right there. The fish ate the fly, and the rod tip goes up. Fun stuff. I was talking during the video about the depth at which you can dangle, being between 20 and 30 feet. And the reason that I say that is because you can do it deeper, but the anchor lines that I have for my boat are about 36 to 40 feet long. So I don't typically anchor much deeper than about 30 feet. But if you wanted to, you could do this technique deeper. So I just wanted to clarify that last little bit here before I send you off to the conclusion. Okay, so you can see that dangling is an effective way to fish midsummer. Hot sunny days on the lake, no bobber, vicious strikes, just kicking back and chilling in between fish. So the next time fish head deep on you, don't worry, relax, kick back. You can still catch them using the dangling technique. Before I go, I just wanted to give a quick shout out. I was introduced to the dangling technique by Phil Rowley and Brian Chan, and those guys have a great online fly shop that's dedicated to stillwater, and I suggest you go and check them out. If you have any questions for me, please visit my website. You can get a hold of me at twosalttravel.com. Thanks again for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks.